because we just talked about Genesis 1. We also said that Christ said that the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you in the book of Luke and in other places. We also looked at Proverbs, which says the breath of man is the lamp of God. All of these things talking about God is within you. So no, this does not go against any teachings. But if you're learning it from a Western perspective, you might have a problem. Or if you're just listening to your pastor, you might have a problem. But if you read that book, you're going to see a lot of similarities.
We are not gods. We do not have his nature.
We are not gods. And his nature is within us. We are just not tapping into it. But it is not the fullness of God that is within us. It is just an image and a likeness.
Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9 say, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts,
Correct.
nor are your ways my ways,"
Correct.
says Yahweh. "For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts."
And this is what the Yoga Sutras teach. They do not say that you can know God. They're not saying that you will gain knowledge of your God, but they're saying that because we were made in the image and likeness of God, the highest form of knowledge that you can get is the knowledge of the self within you. And I agree with that because I think the scriptures agree with that. And I think that Christ agrees with that. But no, we're not learning about God because God is beyond us. This Yoga Sutras teach that the creation can never know the creator. And the evidence of that is within everything that we create, so to speak, or everything that we make, so to speak, and saying that it is intelligent enough to know about us. That's not possible.
You see, anything that we are participating in that has a belief that our true nature is the same as Elohim places us as equals with him, and it is something a believer should always avoid.
That's conjecture. He added that. Like I said, learn it for yourself.
And we also should not be meditating.
We also should not be meditating. There are a slew of scriptures that talk about meditations in many different forms. Many different forms. When I finish this video and upload this video, I'm going to go back and put some notes on this video so that you can see all of the scriptures that talk about meditation. And it's not just meditation on the word, because I get a lot of that. Oh, you're just supposed to meditate on the word. It's not just meditating on the word, but I'll show you the scriptures. You won't have to take my word for it.
We meditate. It is used to clear our mind.
Meditation is not about clearing your mind. Meditation, by definition, means single pointedness or one pointedness. It is the focusing on one image or one idea or one thought so that you can still the mind. Stilling the mind doesn't mean you empty it, because it's not, the yogis teach that it is not possible to empty the mind because the mind is a part of the body. Therefore, it always has to be in motion because things that are created are always in motion. Stillness is divine. It's actually a spiritual thing to be still, which isn't the same as what you're thinking, right? So when you focus on one idea or one thought, you still the mind, right? Which lets you tap into that image of God within you, which lets you tap into the divine part of you and experience that divine part of you. But meditation means one-pointedness. It means focusing on one idea at a time. They actually discourage the attempt at emptying the mind, because emptying your mind will open you up to chaotic forces, because there is chaos at work in this world as well. We are not ignorant of that. We are not oblivious of that. And we are not positive thinkers. Neither are we negative thinkers. We just see things as they are, as a scientist would objectively. You see the world as it was created, and then you figure out how to operate in it. Because he says, the heavens belong to the Lord, but he has given the earth, and the earth belongs to him as well, but he has given it into the care of man. So the knowledge of the earth, which means the knowledge of you, is actually searchable. You can find it out. You know, the proverb says, again, it is the esteem of the Lord to conceal a matter, and it is the honor of kings to search a matter out. So there are things concealed in this creation that we can search out, and it is honorable to do so. To say that we're not supposed to meditate, to say that we're not supposed to learn about these things is handicapping, but it's not. I'm not surprised that he would say something like this because, again, he has a Roman Christian idea, westernized Christian idea of how the East is, and the Romans were trying to handicap the people. So it's not, I'm not surprised that he would say this.
What is unknown to us is that the practice of meditation is also a practice use of channeling spirits.
Meditation is not about channeling spirits. Meditation is not about channeling spirits. Read the Yoga Sutras and learn what meditation is about. And if you want a Cliff Notes version, before you get started, you can go to my Instagram at Safayahu, TSAPHAHYAHU. I will put that in here as well. And you can learn a little bit about what they believe meditation is, because there's 3 stages of meditation.
The scriptures have never instructed us to clear our mind.
No, the scriptures have never instructed us to clear our mind. But there are certain words, when you look at them in depth, that do talk about emptying yourself, which means your carnal self, so that Yah, or Yah as I call him, or God, can fill you with his divinity. The word prophet, Navi, if you look into this word, it's all about becoming a spokesman for God, meaning you have to clear out everything that's of you and let yourself be filled with God. As Christ says, go and sell all of your possessions. That was a parable. It says, loose all of the things that you are bonded to so that he can fill you, meaning emptying yourself. As John says, he must increase and I must decrease. That's all this is talking about, not this woobity-joobity stuff. I made that word up.
Us to meditate on the word. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 4 and 5 say, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in Elohim, for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Messiah. We have to bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of the Messiah.
You might want to read that a little. That reads a little different in a different language. It reads a little different.
Not clear our minds so that other things can come in.
Couple shots of espresso, nice and strong.
Gotta pay the bills again.
1 tablespoon full of the creamer.
Okay, let's skip this ad.
Now, those that are doing yoga for Christians and Christian yoga really don't understand that they are practicing Hinduism.
I want you to understand this. They said that Christians who do yoga are really practicing Hinduism. I want you to really understand this. People who believe in a Trinity, or that Christ is God in the flesh, also known as an avatar, are actually practicing quote unquote Hinduism or Indian spirituality. These are Indian concepts, this God in the flesh or avatar, this concept of Trinity. There's a concept of Trinity in Indian spirituality that's exactly like Christian Trinity. And then there's a concept that's a little different, which the older version is like that. These are qualities of God, 3 qualities of God that make up creation, so to speak. It's like saying like when Safa is angry and yells, this is the angry Safa. When Safa brings gifts, this is the loving Safa. So that's kind of similar to what they look at Trinity as, is like qualities that describe a certain side, so to speak, of God. But that doesn't jive with the older concept either. The Trinity, whether it be the Indian version or the updated version that's identical to Christianity, these don't jive with ancient Hinduism really, or ancient yoga concepts really, because yoga doesn't really deal with a Trinity as in like God, so to speak. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But I just wanted to point out that if you believe in a Trinity, or if you believe that Christ is God in the flesh, you are actually practicing Indian spirituality. But I'm not knocking you, but I guess he is.
Nothing about yoga is innocent. Even the yoga positions are specifically made to worship other gods.
That is not true at all. Yoga positions were not made to worship gods, plural, because when yoga was created, it was created under a monotheistic mind state, that there was a Godhead and there was nothing else, and everything else was what he created. So we're not making yoga positions took on names of gods. I mean, if you're going to put yoga in the Church of Christian Church, you might take Savasana or the corpse pose and call it the cross pose because of the way you lay down. You might do that if you wanted to get creative and you wanted to put your personal religious stamp on it, which is what people did throughout time. Because sun salutation is called Surya Namaskar, or sun salutation has been called sun salutation. It's been called sun worship. It's been called many different things. But the reason it's called sun salutation is because if you do the postures, you're looking up to the sun. Just like if you look at the camel pose, he's showing the camel pose throughout this video. The camel pose is because that looks like a camel's hump, right? The cobra pose, because when you open up your shoulders and lift your back up and raise your head up, it looks like a cobra when he raises itself up. They were very practical names. The names of the yoga postures were practical, and they were not originally named after deities. So that is wrong.
Yoga postures are.
But if you look at it on Wikipedia and if you look at it on Hindu.com, whoever that Hindu believes, because I don't know, he might believe in Vishnu, he might believe in Vishnu, he might believe in what's his name? Shiva, he might believe in others. But then they might relate those yoga postures to that deity or the patron deity of that part of the country. They might relate it to that. But that doesn't mean that that's what it originally was about. Even if you look at Krishna, Krishna was a man. He was an actual prince. If you look at Shiva, Shiva was a man. They became deified later. Does that sound familiar? Start to sound like Christianity a little bit?
Are offering to the gods. It's believed that if you do these postures and do the breathing techniques along with the meditation, then you will be accepted by a god. There are many different gods in Hinduism, but like I said earlier, these gods are not the same God as our one true Elohim, the Elohim of Israel. It is important to note that all postures and poses are all in reference to a false deity.
This is a lie, and it just takes a simple Google search to debunk that. If you look up these postures on the internet, you're going to find many different names at many different periods that these names were talked about. Now, if you have the resources that I have, you would understand that these names were not gods. They became gods later. So all you have to do is do your own research. And if you do it diligently, because a surface search isn't going to do it. That's why I forgive my brother for putting out this wrong information, because it isn't the easiest thing to unearth the ancient practice. But once you unearth the ancient practice, you'll see that these postures were not named after any particular gods, because they only believed in one originally, the creator.
They all have meanings in reference to occultism.
They don't have a reference. I don't even know what he means by occult. I don't know. But yoga is not pitched as magic or anything. He might mean magic. It's not presented as a magic. If you read the Yoga Sutras, it's presented as a scientific, it's a science, and it's a scientific process, meaning it is testable by the scientific method. That's how the body, that's how the mind is supposed to be operated with in the yoga system, through the scientific method, meaning having a hypothesis, right? Or having a thesis that is testable, right? Whereas religions base their things on beliefs, things that can't be tested. A lot of it, you can't test what these people believe in. You can't test it. But Paul said, prove all things, right? In the writings, he said, prove all things. Meaning, if you tell me about something, it has to be testable. Otherwise, you're asking me to be at the mercy of you. And I don't have to be at the mercy of you. The book of Proverbs also, the book of Psalms says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Taste. Look that word up, taste in Hebrew. It means to experience through the senses. So he's saying in the book of Psalms, experience God here and know that he is good. You don't have to believe him blindly. You don't have to wait for something. There is a testable method to see that the Lord is good. And some have done it.
They are all rooted in the culture of Satan.
I mean, who gives someone the right to say it's all rooted in the culture of Satan? Satan, by the way, means adversary, shaitan. It means adversary, the opponent. That's why Christ called Peter Satan, because it wasn't like the devil. The devil's a concept that comes out of Diablos, that comes out of Greece and those places. It's not a concept in ancient Hebrew. It was anybody who was adversarial. Anybody who acted as your opponent was a Satan to you or a shaitan to you. So I want you to understand this truth. For man, the greatest opponent of man is his mind in the state of cognitive dissonance.
They have sun salutations and moon salutations. If you understand anything about paganism, you will know that in the ancient days, the pagans worshiped the sun and the moon.
There were some pagans that actually worshiped the one true living God, so to speak, and that pagan's name was Abraham. Pagan means village dweller. There were some pagans that were named Jacob, Isaac, right? There were some other pagans that believed something totally different. But you're calling, you're using a term in a derogative form that was used against, some really cool ancestors at one point.
Was the sun god and moon goddess. The sun salutation pays homage
to the
sun.
It's almost over.
Even if the one doing the pose is unaware of it. All of these poses are sun salutations. Again, people who are doing these poses are saluting the sun, something a Christian should never do.
Not true.
These poses are moon salutations. When performing these poses, they are saluting the moon.
That's interesting because I've been doing yoga for a year and I've never seen the moon salutations. I don't disagree that they're there. I just have never came across moon salutations. I do a form of yoga that's called Hatha yoga. It's possibly one of the oldest forms, yet a lot of them consider themselves to be the oldest forms. We don't know what the oldest form of asana is because, again, Patanjali only wrote one line on it.
Please remember that the sun god and moon goddess are all representations of Lucifer. When you are doing these poses, you are paying homage to Lucifer.
Again, Lucifer being a Western concept. Lucifer is not an Eastern concept, meaning it is not a Judaism concept. It's not an Islam concept. It is not a proto-Christian concept. This is a concept that came from Rome and those guys. I'm painting them with a broad brush.
So there obviously is no Christian way of doing yoga. Now, not only should we understand that it's wrong to do poses with our body that salute Satan, but we should also understand the dangers of spirituality. It should be known that
Christianity is a form of spirituality. So if there's danger in spirituality, then let's throw it all out. It doesn't make any sense what he's saying. I think things need to be defined before you start making a video. So that's why I've chosen to, if you look at my post, I've tried to be very thorough in defining things before I talk about them. And if you look at, there's a book that's coming forth soon about yoga and where these people come from originally before it was called India. And, these concepts, I'll give you a hint. A lot of these people that were living by the time the Indus Valley, where most people say the beginning of Indian civilization is around the time of the Indus Valley, there's a lot of information that'll prove that the Indus Valley was already mixed up by the time they got there. It was already a mix of cultures by the time they got there. It's really hard to pinpoint Indian spirituality. They cannot really date their manuscripts and whatnot. They can't really date it because they weren't keeping track of it that way. A lot of it was preserved orally. So there's a lot of information that it's hard to place it in a timeline, and it's also hard to place what was here before what, and we have a rough understanding of it. We do know that the Upanishads predate like the Bhagavad Gita and whatnot, and there is a lot of monotheistic language in those books, but we don't have too much we can say about Hinduism. But I've got some things that I'm going to be showing that might surprise people, especially the people who made this video. It might surprise you to understand that a lot of what you're saying is not true, based off of archaeology, based off of etymology, based off of language and whatnot, and all these things, culture, and the oral histories behind them.
In this highly spiritually wicked world, when we do things that have roots in the occult, we give demons and spirits access points and open doorways for them to enter in. When we engage in occult practices, we allow demons and spirits to enter into doorways that we should not have opened. For a Christian, you allow the power of the Holy Spirit to be blocked in your life and are allowing the power of demons and spirits to be manifested. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16 says, Do you not know that you are the temple of Elohim, and that the spirit of Elohim dwells in you? Understand, people, we are his people, and we should not defile a temple with the things that are not made for him. Yoga is not a harmless activity.
It's like saying, like, when you say things like this, it's like saying you shouldn't watch movies, you shouldn't listen to music, because that is called entertainment. And if you look up the word entertainment, you could be entertaining demons. You dig what I'm saying? But that's not really how this thing works. And we'd have to have a long conversation breaking down a lot of these false definitions and these false ideas that are Western in order to build it back up. But the way he's saying you shouldn't do yoga, it's like you shouldn't. There's a lot of things you shouldn't do because it's called entertainment. It's literally called entertainment. So what are you entertaining? But it's a silly idea.
We just need to know the truth about these traditions and practices we were encouraged to blindly accept.
You do need to understand the truths of these traditions and practices that you blindly accept. That goes for Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, yoga, everything. That goes for everything, not just yoga.
If you are a Christian and you have engaged in yoga, please stop and pray about it. Remember, there is no yoga without Hinduism.
Again, where is this quote coming from? I have an idea where it's coming from, and I follow him on Instagram, and I understand why he did it. But they're not giving us a background to this message to let someone explain why they're saying that.
And no Hinduism without yoga. You cannot be a believer in salvation through Yahshua and practice Hinduism. They are completely against each other.
One, Christianity and Hinduism at their base are very similar. I think the only thing that they don't really have in common is like the belief that you can only be saved through one man, which is Christ, Jesus. Hindus, Indian spirituality, they've been really tolerant of people believing whatever they want to believe. But at a time, they weren't very tolerant. There were Hindu groups that were killing people for various different reasons. There was Hinduism or ancient India, ancient Indian spirituality has a very bloody past as well. And that will be brought up in the book as well, that it wasn't all peachy keen and respect all people's religions. But yoga brought a lot of that into Indian spirituality, where they stopped being concerned with orthodoxy, so to speak. And when I say orthodoxy, it means like your specific idea, like your specific idea. And they were more concerned with right living. So for instance, it's just like the ancient Jews. They were not concerned about doctrinal belief. Weren't concerned with like belief in a specific doctrine. If you look at the Essenian community, the Essenes, a lot of different scrolls were found with a lot of different doctrines written in them. So you don't see a discrimination against doctrine. But what the ancient people were concerned with was set apart living or clean living or right living. And so they had a code of ethics, and that code of ethics trumped doctrine all the time and trumped all of the other beliefs, like, was Christ born of a virgin? Was he not born of a virgin? Was he born of a man? Was he God in the flesh? Was he a prophet? Was he a man who was born of Joseph and Mary? Or was he just born of Mary? They weren't concerned with things like that. They wouldn't, so to speak, not that they weren't concerned because he wasn't on the scene yet, but they wouldn't be concerned with things like that. They would be concerned with, how do we live correctly together? And this is how ancient India was. They weren't really concerned with who you worship, what you worship, how you worship the one creator. They were more interested in how do we live correctly together? How do we live in harmony with everything?
Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8 and 9 say, Yahshua HaMashiach is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be carried away with various and strange doctrines. We cannot make the wicked things of this world holy. If it was made and designed for Satan, it will always be for Satan.
Now look at how much he's wrapping his video up now. Look at the eerie music, and look at how much he's talking about Satan. It's satanic, it's satanic, it's satanic, it's satanic. There's no more information. There's no more, most of his facts were absolutely false. But there's no more facts even. It's satanic. It's not the Bible. It's not Christian. Christians don't do this thing. It's fear mongering. And the ancients say that a prophet always had to arise when the belief in the Creator was based on fear and superstition. And there's a lot of fear and superstition being pumped in this video right now, and not that many facts. And the facts that he is presenting as facts came from one single source, Hindus.com. It came from one single source, and they were wrong.
The only things that has happened is that the devil's ways have been marketed and promoted to us as harmless and beneficial. So much so that we do not see the devil in it.
The devil again.
Think about it. There are poses that are literally made to salute the sun. Why would the Father want us engaging in activities that are created to salute the sun?
Again, conjecture. This is his opinion. Conjecture, because this is how he sees it. And he's trying to make you see it how he sees it. I mean, beware of these I won't say necessarily false teachers. I won't put that on him, but I will say these manipulative teachers. It's very manipulative.
He has never told us to do things like this. One of the biggest mistakes people make is just writing things off as harmless and inconsequential, believing that things aren't that big of a deal, and just as long as they believe in Yahshua, they can do what they want and be saved. This is a lie from the pit of hell.
A lie from the pit of hell. He's getting very passionate about it now.
Yoga is a form of practicing Hinduism.
Lie.
Remember that Sri K. Patabi Joyce said that the spiritual aspect, which is beyond the physical, is the purpose of yoga.
And that is an absolute fact. But it isn't evil, because he's painting spiritual as evil. Because if spiritual is said by anybody but a Christian, it's bad. This is how he thinks. If anyone says spiritual or spirituality and they're not a Christian that believes that Christ is salvation, it is bad. And this is ignorant, man. It's very ignorant.
All the devil did is find a way to promote his form of spiritual activity and disguise it as harmless exercise.
And now the devil created yoga. This is ridiculous, bro.
Those positions you are doing are used to worship Satan.
This is ridiculous.
Just place this in the...
See, now he ramped it up. He started out one way, but now he's ramped it up. He's literally saying yoga was created by Satan, disguising satanic worship in exercise. This is absolutely ridiculous. And you should be ashamed of yourself for sharing it in that form, because that is not the way you do research. That is not the way you present information. You should be ashamed of yourself. And anybody who liked this video and shared this video without first doing their due diligent research should be ashamed of themselves as well. Do not speak on a matter before you understand what you're talking about. If you want to know about yoga, you need to read the Yoga Sutras. You need to listen to people like Paramahansa Yogananda. You need to listen to people like Sri Swami Satchidananda. You need to listen to people like Sadhguru and hear what they have to say on these situations, and read the text for yourself first before you hear them out, and then make an informed judgment. You cannot click on a few links and learn about anything, especially something as ancient as yoga.
The same box that all the other pieces of deception of this world are placed in. It's just something else that you now know better. The list doesn't stop here, but as things continue to get exposed, you begin to see a constant theme, which is that we must know what we do and accept in this world. Revelation chapter 12 verse 9 says that Satan
throws up this guy with horns.
So if we don't begin to question all the things that we do and accept, we make ourselves more vulnerable to traps that we could clearly be able to see if we had more understanding. If you are deceived by this, pray about it. This may be a wake-up call for you. When you pray, ask the Father for more discernment on the matter, and like always, repent and ask Him for forgiveness. Ask Him to close the doorway that you may have opened through the yoga. He will fix it. Teach others from your experience to help others break from this bondage. If you are one that promotes yoga for Christians and Christian yoga, please don't harden your heart to this because you want to reject the truth.
Now he's presenting this information as the truth. Don't harden your heart to... I will say this as well. Do not harden your heart to what I've shared with you because you want to reject the other side of the story. Open yourself up so that truth may be revealed, because no man holds truth. No man has a copyright on truth. We have to define what truth is, right? Truth is the underlying principle of all things that is inherent in all things. There's an underlying thread that goes through everything. That is truth. Truth is not facts. and little pieces of information. Truth is not a book. A book cannot hold truth, but a book can help one along their journey to discover truth, because truth has to be experienced. It cannot be conveyed. That's why the Messiah spoke in parables, because he couldn't give you a direct answer to it, but he was inspiring people to seek, to pick up their cross, as it says in your version, and walk it out so you can experience truth. So what I'm telling you isn't the truth either. But what I'm saying is, if you take some of what I'm trying to share with you here and research it for yourself objectively, not biasly, then you too can come to a better conclusion. A wise man said that pure perception is clarity. Perception laced with imagination is confusion. You have imagined a lot of things, and then you have supported those imaginations with what you think is facts or truths, but it's really just information, and bad information at that.
Research the connection of yoga and Hinduism yourself.
Research the connection of yoga and Hinduism yourself. That is a fact. But don't click on it. Go and get Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and I will give you a very good version that will help you break down the language of it. And also it has commentaries on it, because again, you cannot understand the yoga of Patanjali's era without understanding the world that he was living in. And the commentaries on the Yoga Sutra is going to paint a vivid picture of the world as it was around those times, around those other schools of thought that he talked about, and show you why yoga is unique to those schools of thought, and why yoga is not a religion but a science.
It will become quite clear to you.
And it will become quite clear to you. Amen.
It's time to put away all things that brings us away from the Father.
That means your TV, this computer, right? You're overeating. There's a lot of things that keep you away from the Father. I don't think yoga is one of them, because things in moderation are fine. Some things are not good at all. Other things are good in moderation. It's about not letting these things control your life. It's about not living a compulsive life. It's about living a conscious life. And that's what yoga teaches. It helps you to discover these things. And you don't have to let go of your belief in Jesus Christ to gain benefits from yoga, because yoga, it's like saying you have to give up Jesus to learn mathematics. It's like saying you have to give up Jesus to learn chemistry. You don't have to give up your belief in Jesus to learn the science of the soul, the science of the difference between the body and the soul. You do not have to give that up. And you will derive great benefits, and you might understand the words of Christ a lot better.
Yoga is definitely one of them.
Why? Because when you can remove the obstacles of the mind, which are your biases, your impulses, your cravings, your compulsiveness, when you can remove those things and see things through pure perception, then you see things as they are. And then truth will